Pat Devlin. Yes. Okay.
Sure.
Better to be careful than sorry. He's a decent little quarterback. Here comes the boss lady.
Well, it's about time.
What the heck? Oh. How are things?
I'm surviving.
Yeah.
That's as good as it gets today, guys.
That,
You.
boss lady has arrived. I'm Snapchatting. Hopefully, once.
Snapchatting? Oh, I'm on Snapchat for the first time.
You've never been on Snapchat? You've been on. I've Snapchatted you before.
Yeah.
Well, then
Hey, you're like Laremy Tunsil. There might be videos out there that that you just don't know about.
It is 1 o'clock. They have the stream link. Do you have it, Omar?
No, I sent it out. I'm not watching it.
All right, we're about ready to get started. If you are watching us live, hang with us. We will do a little overtime with you and take some more of your questions.
That means if you still have questions that you have not sent the show already, you can hashtag them to me, X's and Omar, hashtag XOmar, and we will find it. Still time for questions for overtime. I'll tweet that out.
I'm ready.
We're ready.
Okay, let's rock and roll. Hold on, let me close my Snapchat out. Nope. Okay. Turn this out. You don't see any of that stuff on the side, do you?
Tighter?
Sarah,
Yeah.
my hair check?
Hair's looking good.
All right.
Fresh.
Let's go with a depth chart, draft picks. All right, I'm ready to rock. Good Lord. It's like a monsoon out here.
3, 2, 1.
And welcome to the post-draft rainy day edition of X's and Omar alongside Sun Sentinel Dolphins columnist Omar Kelly. I'm CBS 12 Sports Director Matt Lincoln. The 2016 NFL Draft is over. The picks are in. About 24 rookies are also coming into town this weekend. We're going to break down all of these new additions and what this 2016 Dolphins team could look like with these new additions on the team. We're certainly going to talk about many of the later draft picks and what we think of them, but you got to start at the top, and you're going to start with the number one pick. So were the Dolphins lucky that Laremy Tunsil fell all this far to 13, or did they possibly make a mistake by taking a guy with some questions?
I think they made a bold pick. Now, certainly they were lucky. Laremy Tunsil, somebody tried to sabotage this guy's life by hacking his social media. Obviously, it's an extortion attempt. There are theories out there that it's probably somebody who wanted him to sign as an advisor or a financial advisor. Whatever the case is, Laremy Tunsil fell because he's dumb enough to allow somebody to videotape him smoking weed in a bong, and obviously to admit to soliciting money from his coaches at Ole Miss. Now, certainly a nightmare situation for Laremy Tunsil, but how will that impact him in the NFL? It won't, as long as he's not involved in the NFL's drug testing program. For those who don't realize this, the NFL basically has a wink-wink deal with marijuana regarding marijuana, where there's a 2-month period where you're tested for marijuana. Players know when that 2-month period is. As long as you're clean during that 2-month period, you can smoke for 10 months. As long as Laremy Tunsil isn't in the drug testing program, he hasn't failed a drug test, and then isn't subjected to 10 tests a month, he's going to be wink-wink okay to resume his NFL career without any kind of Deion Jordan-esque suspensions.
Well, I was going to say, are you surprised that the Dolphins went with a guy who might have these questions when they're still haunted by the biggest draft bust who had his own substance issues?
I am not surprised because this is a different Dolphins regime. This is a different Dolphins era. Joe Philbin would have been queasy making the Laremy Tunsil selection, and in fact, I'm pretty sure he would have advocated and said no thanks. This is a different regime. Adam Gase is an alpha male. He has a strong personality, strong conviction, strong beliefs, and he's going to make bold moves. He's going to make bold calls, and he's going to make bold decisions. And Laremy Tunsil selecting him is a bold decision for this team, which is why it's a step in the right direction. They have done such a bad job of being conservative and being sort of passive as an organization, and it's filtered throughout the entire organization. And this draft was a sign of a change.
Yeah, lots of alpha males coming in. Before we talk about the whole group, though, let's take some questions specifically about Tunsil. Andy asks, true or false, Tunsil has the necessary traits and skill set to perform well at offensive guard for a season?
I think he does. When I watched his film, I loved him as a pass blocker. I think he walls off his defenders very well. He has the athleticism to get to the outside to sort of contain even a blitzer. The biggest area of concern that I had was his run blocking. I just didn't see a guy who mauled people and moved people in the Billy Turner mold. And that sort of puts him into the Dallas Thomas realm of a run blocker. I think he's going to be a good left guard. I think that is the natural position for him. You keep Brandon Albert there at left tackle. That's the position he's played. He was a Pro Bowler as a left tackle last year. Even though Brandon Albert has guard experience playing guard at Virginia, I think the best position for Laremy Tunsil is to stay at left guard where there's less issues, less protections issues, less blitzes coming at him. Allow him to get his feet going, and then next year, wink, wink, when when Brandon Albert's salary escalates to $9 million a year, when he's a year older, you shake him down like you usually do in the NFL, and you possibly put Laremy Tunsil out at that left tackle spot, so it protects you for the future. But I think he's going to be okay at guard. He certainly can't be worse than Dallas Thomas.
Of course. So who is the other starter?
I think it's Billy Turner.
Okay.
I liked what I saw from Billy Turner right up until that point where he got injured late in the final 4 games of the season. When he was inserted into the starting lineup, I believe it was the Tennessee game. Houston, it was whichever game came first, Houston and Tennessee. Instantly, you could run the ball.
All right. Now we're looking at 4 first-rounders on that front 5.
That means no more excuses for Ryan Tannehill.
I was going to say, Matthew asks on Twitter, can the O-line actually be a position of strength in 2016 when it was arguably the team's biggest weakness?
Not only did they add Laremy Tunsil, but I liked what they did from a depth standpoint where they added Jerome Bushrod, they added Sam Young, they added Craig Urbick. I like that they added 3 veterans that are very seasoned, polished, done it. They're aged, they're discounted players because of their age, but they've all done it, and they can all step in and play better than Jason Fox. To me, as I've always said, the offensive line, the talent level, except for Dallas Thomas, is not the issue. It's what happens when injuries take hold of that unit. And really, they were a problem when Jason Fox started.
Jason Fox, yeah.
It wasn't anybody significantly outside of Jason Fox, but you're only as good as your weakest link. And right now, at the worst, your weakest link is Jerome Bushrod playing left guard and maybe Jamil Douglas or Dallas Thomas playing left tackle and Jamil Douglas and Dallas Thomas playing a guard spot. And I like that. I think you could get over with that.
So a day 1 winner. We talked about it before, before the show started. This is not a great draft for players.
No.
And not only did it seem like Laremy Tunsil fell to the Dolphins, but also none of the other guys that they were really interested in did fall.
Yeah. If you just looked at how the board was shaking down, there were really only 3 options for the Dolphins. They could take Laremy Tunsil, the number 2 player on their board. They could take William Jackson III, the cornerback from Houston, who eventually wound up getting picked in the 20s. Or they could have taken Miles Jack, an injured outside linebacker who basically fell to the 2nd round and was taken by the Jacksonville Jaguars. I would have went with Tunsil, and probably my second choice would have been to go with, William Jackson III or Artie Burns, because I liked Artie Burns better than William Jackson III, and 4 years from now we'll probably see that. But they went with, to me, what was the safest pick. Yeah, he's got all these character issues, some question his intelligence, because clearly you're pretty dumb. Even though this is a generation of kids that do everything on video, you know, if you're smoking weed, let's try not to have anybody videotape it.
Well, not when you're that guy. You know,
Not when you've got
when
$10
you've
million
got-
to lose, and that's pretty much the equivalent of what he lost going from the 3rd pick, which is what he probably would have been, or maybe the 5th pick to the Ravens, to the 13th pick where the Dolphins selected him. $10 million because of a bad choice.
Well, on day 2 of the draft, the Dolphins did 2 things we thought they were going to do, and then did a surprise thing. They took the cornerback that they liked, Xavier Howard, in the 2nd round. Then the 3rd round, they took a running back, which apparently the one that they liked, Kenyon Drake out of Alabama. And then they traded back into the 3rd round to take Leonte Carew, a wide receiver out of Rutgers. Let's start with Carew. Your thoughts on that move?
Well, it's interesting that you begin with Carew because he's probably the pick that I like the most in the draft. He nearly made my man crush list, 29 touchdowns. He reminds me a lot of Jarvis Landry. He's got a little bit more speed than Jarvis Landry. Tough, confident, physical receiver, arrogant. I like the arrogant part. It is definitely going to be a surprise to see where he falls into this wide receiver unit. But I definitely, is he worth the future 2017 picks that they gave up for him? Probably. But here's the thing, the benefit of Carew. It helps you get ahead with your wide receiver unit because in 2017, Kenny Stills is going to be a free agent. More than likely, we've seen what happens to free agents when they get here. When they get to that point, they graduate when they instantly don't become cheap anymore. And Kenny Stills is probably going to be moving on to another team. In 2018, Jarvis Landry is going to command a $50, $60 million deal. He's a Pro Bowler right now. He's one of the top most productive receiver in NFL history in terms of receptions and yards in his first 2 seasons. You think he's going to take pennies to play for the Miami Dolphins? So you're going to have a difficult situation. Well, what you've done in this draft, if you've addressed that possible situation a year or 2 from now by taking 2 receivers, Leonte Carew and Jakeem Grant, that you can develop and get them ready for that opportunity.
All right, let's move on. We talked about it at the beginning of the show. This is a different feeling group of guys than we have seen in the past in terms of their personality. Is this, what kind of sign of a regime change is this with these guys? You
know what? The one consistent theme, and I wrote about this in a column with the Sentinel, that you got from this Dolphins draft is, he's an alpha male. We wanted him on our team, and it was such a breath of fresh air for me because Joe Philbin was so uncomfortable with people with alpha male personalities. If you challenged Joe Philbin, he was getting a little queasy. I'm never going to let that go. And it was a situation where you banished anybody who had any kind of heart, except for Jarvis Landry, Mike Pouncey, Louis Delmas. Everybody had a meek personality, and ultimately you became a meek team.
Right.
And no leaders, there's a very bad leadership void on that Dolphins team. And this is something that this organization said, we got to address. And so they brought in a pack of alpha males. And it sort of fits in with who Adam Gase is, because if you really understand it, I'm an alpha male. I'm attracted to, not that way,
right,
but I'm drawn to other alpha males.
Well, that's common. You like guys who are like yourself.
Exactly. So why would you be interested in a meek personality if you were an alpha male? Right. You're going to look down on that. So you got to look at Adam Gase. He's looking at his roster and he's saying to himself like, man, all these guys have meek personalities. Joe Philbin wanted an entire team of Coamises. Yeah. You're not going to win in the NFL with Coamises, and we saw that during the Philbin era.
All right, let's take our next Twitter question. It comes from Roderick. Do you think with trying to get all these alphas, we have the coaching to handle them? Because that can be an issue sometimes.
Yeah. From a defensive standpoint, probably yes with Vance Joseph. Really, the defense has got to figure out how to get Ndamukong Suh under control. Offensively, and get him to play well. Offensively, I don't know about Clyde Christensen, so it'll be interesting to see. The offense, their main worry needs to be, how do we get Ryan Tannehill to play up to his talent level? How do we get this quarterback to stop playing like he's a punk?
Okay.
All right. And it's
just all on Gase, right?
Yeah, that falls on Gase,
Yeah.
and I've seen some of it in the practices where Adam Gase is blitzing Ryan Tannehill himself. So and they've got to make him make faster and better decisions, and be better in the pocket presence. And once you do that and become aggressive, convince him. There was a drastic difference between a Joe Philbin coach team and a Dan Campbell coach team, because Dan Campbell said to Ryan Tannehill, "Be aggressive. I want you shooting for the jugular. I want you throwing that deep pass. I don't want you checking down. I want you being aggressive." And then all of a sudden, Ryan Tannehill is the second biggest big play quarterback in the NFL last season. Who would have thought that? So it's there, potentially. You just got to bring it out of him, and hopefully Adam Gase can do that.
Our next question comes from the real Caffrey.
Okay.
The Dolphins added many offensive players to the draft. What should be the game plan to form a respectable defense?
Oh, man, I really think that they've got to go out there and they've got to address their defense by adding some free agents.
Yeah.
There are 3 cornerbacks right now in the free agent market: Leon Hall, Antonio Cromartie, Brandon Browner, who I personally believe can still help you on this team. Yeah, they've all had their issues where they were last playing, but let's not pretend like they're not NFL players. And I'm uncomfortable. I'm nervous about that cornerback position because Xavier Howard, when you looked at his film, it was not that great.
Right.
He got beat a lot.
Highs and lows.
Highs and lows. Highs and lows. He's got ball skills. He's got speed. He's got a little bit of size to him. But I need to see him on the film. And the one question and concern that I have about rookie cornerbacks is their mental toughness. Jamar Taylor had ability. Jamar Taylor was traded to the Cleveland Browns. They just threw him in to move up in the 7th round just to get rid of him. Jamar Taylor had ability. Jamar Taylor didn't have mental toughness.
Right.
And then you look at Bobby McCain. Bobby McCain had ability. He was playing well. Suffered a concussion, came back in. I forgot what team it was. Decided, we're going to target you.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
And that game destroyed
Was
his
the end of-
confidence.
it was the end of him.
The end of Bobby McCain for
Right.
an entire season. Tony
He had
Lippett-
that great interception in the Redskins game.
Yeah.
Remember they kicked off the season, and then in a couple games.
No, that was Bryce McCain. But
Oh,
Bobby,
I'm sorry,
Bobby
Bobby
McCain
McCain,
had a deflection in the end zone
I remember now what
that
you're
won
talking
a
about.
game
Right,
for
right.
them. But you have to have that mental toughness that you can rebound, and what you just got beat for a touchdown, you better wipe it away and keep it moving and go out there and play. And I'm not sure that any of these cornerbacks have that kind of ability and mental toughness that when Brandon Marshall jumps up in the air and scores a touchdown on him or scores 2 touchdowns on him, are they going to mentally be able to file it away and go out there and play?
And that's the thing about rookie corners. You look at rookie
Yeah.
everywhere else. A rookie wide receiver, maybe it's an error.
But
it
they
makes
say
a mistake.
there are 2 positions that people in the NFL say that you can play right away and there's very little drop off: running back and cornerback. And those happen to be the 2 positions the Dolphins left to address in the draft.
That being said, if you're a cornerback and you make a rookie mistake, it could be a 60-yard touchdown. It's the biggest play of the game.
Yeah.
So let's take our next question from Real William Carr. When you score an average of 20 points per game in this NFL, is it really that surprising that the Fins went heavy on offense?
There were only, I believe it's 4 games where the Dolphins scored more than 20 points in a game last
yeah.
season. Offense is clearly an issue. You have to score more points. You have to have more of a lead so that maybe the defense can pin their ears back and be aggressive. You've got a defensive line that's aggressive, that can hound the quarterback. They were rarely put in positions to just pin their ears back and go get the quarterback. And you saw what happened in the games where they did have a lead. Game was over, blowout. Yes, it makes sense, especially with you having an offensive coach, a quarterback guru, that you're going to add pieces on the offense. I'm a little bit uncomfortable that you added 2 wide receivers because it's a low wide
It
receiver.
doesn't look good for your man, Matt Hazel.
Oh, my Hazel's not my man. Listen, you had wide receiver. I thought was the deepest
Sure.
unit on the team.
Yeah, and they took 2 more.
And they
two
just
more.
took 2 more.
Right.
Hey,
Right.
more props to them. Now, you needed 1 offensive lineman. I thought you needed probably a guard. Well, you added the best left tackle in the draft and said, hey, we're going to play him at guard. Your entire offensive line is filled with all college offensive tackles. You do realize that
Yeah.
now. So you have no excuse why you can't run block. You have no excuse why you can't pass protect. So now Ryan Tannehill's got the protection. He's got a stable of wide receivers. He's got 2 quality NFL tight ends. let's see how that running back situation it gets addressed. And you could also always sign Arian Foster.
Is that happening? Are they going to sign someone here, or are they going to go?
I think
with
they're going to go
Drake?
to. I think they're going to do the same thing they're going to do at cornerback. Go into camp with what they have. Go into OTAs with what they have. See how those players perform for the next month in practice. And if they see that there's an issue, go out in there and sign somebody.
Let's move on. So this is a practice-less rookie minicamp this week. It's a little hard. It's not great for us TV guys who wanted to see those guys out on the field. But what are some of the pros and cons to having it this way? As Coach Gay said, he wants to have them in the classroom, wants to teach them about being NFL players more than seeing them out there practice.
Here's a secret for you Dolphin fans. And I go out to rookie camp every year for a week. It is an entire waste of my weekend. It is.
Oh man, I love watching them do jumping jacks.
No. The rookies are so scared they don't even know which field to go run to after when the whistle blows. They've got nobody there to lead them. If you had veterans there and the veterans are like, okay, we're going to this field to do this drill, it's a little bit easier. But they're scared of their own shadow.
When you're Laremy Tunsil, you just go to wherever Mike Pouncey tells you to go.
And here's another problem that I always had with it. In rookie camp, you've got all these rookie tryout guys because they're there, because you need to fill out a whole roster so you can actually practice offense versus defense. And those guys are working so hard to impress this coaching staff so that they can be that one guy who gets signed that they could potentially hurt somebody.
Yeah.
And somebody important like a Laremy Tunsil. Look what happened to the Jacksonville Jaguars last year. I like this move. The only thing that can tell you that I learned from rookie camp within 10 years of covering the Dolphins is one year I saw Walt Aikens playing cornerback position, and I said, he doesn't have the hips to play cornerback. He needs to go play safety. And the next week, he was moved to safety. So it does prevent the coaches from getting their hands on and seeing what they have from those rookies. But I'm sorry, that can wait a week.
Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
That can wait a week.
Okay, so let's move on a little bit from the draft and talk about OTAs. And we had some missing faces on OTAs. Like you brought up Sue before, and Rashad Jones not there. Is this a problem?
It is a problem from this standpoint. If you expected Ndamukong Suh to be a leader, which I did not. I don't know if you did.
No, I mean,
You
they're
knew
paying him like one.
They're paying. Okay, well, you knew who he was before you gave him $114 million. You knew who he was before you gave him a big fat signing bonus, a big fat a roster bonus to create cap space. And Ndamukong Suh has control of the franchise because he controls the money situation. And Ndamukong doesn't have to show up for OTAs. And in fact, he didn't show up with the Lions, and it didn't stop him from being a Pro Bowl caliber player. He's training in Seattle, doing his training with his specialists at a facility better than the Dolphins, and he'll be ready for camp. What's the problem with that?
The problem with that is that his teammates aren't too happy about it.
Well, you claim his teammates aren't too happy about that.
You don't think they care?
I don't think they care.
Okay.
And I've talked
because
to,
they know who he is.
They know who he is. What they care about is the fact that the things are different for him.
Okay.
The exceptions are made for him. Excuses are made for him. He can get away with things that nobody else can. But truth be told, Ndamukong Suh has more control of the Dolphins franchise than Adam Gase. Because he's got $114 million owed.
Wow.
You're not getting rid of Ndamukong Suh. You're not cutting Ndamukong Suh. You're not trading Ndamukong Suh. He's got you by the balls. You chose to be in bed with Ndamukong Suh. Don't be mad when the snake bites you.
Well, I mean,
now,
we'll see.
If he comes in and he plays well, and he's a dominant force on the defensive line, kind of like he was last year, hopefully more dominant than he was last year, but I think you got to get him a better supporting cast. Who cares that he skips OTA? Now, Rashad Jones, that's a different subject because Rashad is skipping OTAs because he wants more money. Rashad's making $7 million over the next 2 years, which used to be good safety money until safety started making $9 and $10 million. He wants his contract revisited. And the only time that you can get an organization's attention is right now, during OTAs, when it's voluntary and you can skip it. Well, Rashad has a right to do this. And If you want him in camp, then you revisit his contract and you give him a raise. Or you guarantee the next 2 years of his deal and extend his contract. He's right. He's right. You can extend his contract. You can commit that $14 million to him and raise his salaries in future years. You're just going to choose not to because you're going to be cheap. I don't have a problem when players use the leverage that they have. Now, who has a problem with it? The media and the fans. But truth be told, they don't have to account. They don't. Neither the organization. Yeah, the organization has to answer to us. But the players don't have to answer to the fans.
So should they? I mean, should they
No.
give him more money or extend the contract? What should they do?
I would. I have the personal opinion that because the Dolphins allow Rashad Jones to break the play and freelance, they have allowed him to become the player that he is. Therefore, I made you, I can break you. I don't think he can have as dominant a season unless they'll give him that freedom. So I'm not paying him a raise. Not this year. Maybe I'll revisit his contract in a year if he's still playing at that Pro Bowl level. So, no. He's being paid handsomely for $7 million. If you're making more than $6 million in the NFL, you're being paid well. And Rashad's making $7 million. I don't think the Dolphins should revisit his contract. He's going to throw a tantrum, but you know what? He's going to show up when it's time to show up for mandatory stuff, and he's being fined $10,000 a day.
Yeah, he'll show up for that.
He'll show up.
All right, let's hit some more questions from you. From JMLTO, who do you see as our starting cornerbacks in Week 1?
I'm going with Bobby McCain and maybe Xavier Howard or Tony Lippett. I think Bobby McCain can have a rebound year. I thought he played well in the nickel, and then maybe even Michael Thomas in the nickel. So maybe let me go with Byron Maxwell, Bobby McCain, and Michael Thomas. I think that's the starting point. I just don't go out there and say a rookie's going to outperform these guys who've been here for a year and know what the NFL's about. Because Xavier Howard and the Lucas kid, the Jordan Lucas, they don't know what the NFL's about.
Yeah, and you can't.
You can't teach. Listen, neither of those guys have faced Brandon Marshall.
Right. Yeah, they have no idea. What it's
They
like
have
with Brandon
no
Marshall.
idea what's in store for them.
Well, they're not going to face they're not going to face, let's see, they start off with Seattle. There's not huge receivers there. Then it's New England, not huge receivers there.
They've never faced Tom Brady.
They won't in Week 2 either.
Yeah. Oh.
All right, let's take the next question from Ralph. Could Brandon Doughty be Chad Pennington light? Accurate, smart?
It's a cute story. Hometown guy, was coached by Dan Marino when he was in high school. It's a great story, but realistically, Brandon Doughty is competing with Logan Thomas for a third quarterback spot, and realistically, the Dolphins aren't going to keep a third quarterback on the 53-man roster. You need that spot for practice squad. I mean, you need that spot for special teams. So Brandon Doughty's really competing to say, hey, I'm your practice squad quarterback. I'm your developmental guy.
I think even Ralph would say, obviously, we don't think that Brandon Doughty's going to come in into, but long term, does he have an opportunity 2-3 years down the road to be a guy that could be looked at as the Matt Moore replacement or even a guy who could be in the mix?
Right now, he's Pat Devlin and has some work to do to prove that he's going to be Matt Moore. Very accurate quarterback. Decent arm, not an NFL arm. Right. And hopefully he can develop into one who has an NFL arm. People compare him to Chad Pennington. Well, Chad Pennington was a first-round pick who didn't have an arm after injury. He had an arm before injury. Brandon Doughty is not Chad Pennington.
Okay. Next question from Eric. Who is your favorite Finns draft pick?
You know what? The guy whose film really pops out to me is the Jakeem Grant, the kid from Texas Tech. Woo, he's a sexy returner.
Yeah. Well, that was interesting because we didn't really talk too much about that in the pre-draft show. I really didn't think about the Dolphins didn't need return help. You can't have Jarvis Landry doing it all, and they went after it because Kenyon Drake
they got pretty much 3 guys who can do return work.
Yeah.
And that's impressive. They improved the third phase of their game. But Jakeem Grant, man, is his film sexy.
Yeah.
And you know, little small, about this big, 5'5", 170-pound, bigger than the guy. Yeah. And you know, he's just a spark plug, a lightning rod. And then Kenyon Drake, I really did like that selection. I think that he's going to have an opportunity to win that starting spot. I'm never comfortable with Alabama picks, but that's one of the picks that I'm a little bit more comfortable because he doesn't have that much wear and tear on his tires. He's got ridiculous 4.3 speed, and he's got good size. You got to love that.
Yeah, we talked about in the pre-draft show why you don't like Alabama picks is because they've been coached up so much at Alabama that there's not that much room for improvement because they're already about as good as they can get.
But this guy never had an opportunity to be the workhorse because you had the Heisman Trophy runner in that backfield and the guy who bell cow, So, hey, Kenyon Drake, he's got a lot to prove.
Is he a Ronnie Hillman type guy? That sort of guy, get 15 carries, a couple of catches, and that's enough.
Question. A guy, 10, 15 touches for both of those backs. Hopefully this running game will be the unit that carries this offense, and hopefully the Dolphins can get to a 2,000-yard rushing attack. That's always been my goal for this team. 2,000-yard rushing attack, I guarantee you're in the playoffs.
Let's take another question from Matthew. What are 3 big positives going into the 2016 season for the Dolphins? The 3 biggest reasons why Dolphins fans should have optimism that 2016 is going to be a good year.
Well, let's start with the fact that Adam Gase is here. He's a quarterback whisperer. He's an alpha male. Hopefully he can make Ryan Tannehill a leader, have him perform better in the clutch, and have him develop pocket presence. Let's start there. You've got somebody who can finally, hopefully, help Ryan Tannehill take his diaper off and become a big boy quarterback. Then you get to the offensive line. Tunsil, man, that's a gift from God. Yeah. Hopefully he can stay, keep his piss clean, and stay off stay out of the drug program. But I think that's going to help the offensive line get better. We're no longer hopefully going to have to rely on Dallas Thomas and his 5 mistake-filled plays a game. And then I like the pass rushing. I like Sue, I like Wake, I like Mario Williams. Hopefully all of them come in motivated, hungry, driven, something to prove. They should all have something to prove. Sue had his worst NFL season last year. Cam Wake's coming off an Achilles injury. Mario Williams, people say he quit on his team and he sucks now. Well, all you guys, hopefully you take that as motivation and can become a forceful unit and one of the best defensive lines in the NFL. Set the table for the rest of the defense.
Those are reasons to be optimistic. How are reasons to be pessimistic? Back 7 questions.
I'm uncomfortable at the inside linebacker spot. I'm uncomfortable at cornerback, and then Ryan Tannehill's your quarterback.
There it is. Thank you so much for joining us on this post-draft edition of X's and Omar. If you're watching us live, hang with us. We'll answer some of your questions on X's and Omar Overtime. For Omar, I'm Matt. Thanks for watching.
All right. Loaded. All right. Questions. If you still have questions and you want to ask them on Twitter using the X and Omar hashtag. Obviously, we'll look at the first question since,
We actually did get to all the questions in the script today.
I don't think we did. I think
you don't
we
think
might
so?
have skipped some on page 1. When do you see starting cornerback? Who do you see as starting cornerback in week 1? Oh, yeah, we did answer that one. Okay. Maybe.
The one thing that we didn't ask, this was one of your own questions.
Okay.
I guess we kind of answered it. Can we expect any of the late round picks to have an impact next year?
Nah. Maybe Jakeem Grant. Maybe Jakeem Grant as a punt returner. I just don't see. I don't think most of these guys are even going to make the 53-man roster.
Right.
I don't know about Jordan Lucas, but I've looked at everybody else, and it's okay.
Okay.
It's nothing special. Here we go. You got some questions up there?
Yeah, I'll check the hashtag too. All right, so here we go. So we talked about from Jose. We talked about Brandon Albert. Mm-hmm. I mean, it really kind of depends on what Tunsil does this year, but there's certainly a
depends on what Brandon Albert does. If Brandon Albert's a Pro Bowler for another season, his 3rd Pro Bowl season, you're not going to cut him.
Right.
So it's a possibility that Brandon Albert can earn his $9 million salary.
Bill's more of a comment than a question. I'm thinking DB, maybe this staff's blind spot, much like offensive guard and tight end were the blind spots in the past.
They also have the Chimdi Chua. I don't even know who this kid is. And then I don't even know how to say that kid's name. You're probably a TV guy.
Ifo Ekpre Olomu.
Yeah.
Who is that?
He was projected as an early draft pick last year.
Oh.
The Browns took him in the late rounds, and Cleveland, and then they were developing, put him on the NFI, and then basically going into camp, they said that you're still not healed. We're done with you. We're done investing in you. And the Dolphins picked him up. He's not practicing yet. He's still rehabbing, but the kid is talented, so we'll see. Well, the kid had talent. Injury is always a factor.
Norman asks about Michael Thomas, who's one of my favorite players. Such a nice guy.
Great personality. Great person.
Is he a good option at slot corner, or should he stick with backup safety?
Nah, slot corner. I mean, he played that position. He can man it. I think he's tough. He could tackle, physical. He can cover. I mean, he won you the Patriots game 2 years ago playing the nickel position. Why not?
Yeah.
He rises in big moments. And while I don't think he's a free safety, I do think that he has the potential to be a Jimmy Wilson-esque type nickel.
Dave, with the team moving toward alpha types, is Ryan Tannehill considered an alpha?
Hell no.
Who are the remaining alphas? Who were the remaining alphas after the Philbin purge? Pouncey.
Alphas on the team. Jarvis Landry, obviously. Mike Pouncey, obviously. I think Brandon Albert is kind of an alpha. Cam Wake is not an alpha. Sue is not an alpha.
Is there one on the defense?
Was Louis Delmas. Louis Delmas is not really an alpha. No.
What do we know about Abdul Quddus?
Absolutely nothing.
Probably not. Okay, great. In terms of his personality, I guess we don't.
No.
But one thing that Landry taught us, and I asked a question about it in the pre-draft press conference, is that rookies aren't just guys on a corner anymore. I mean, you can come into a locker room and be a leader immediately.
Jarvis took over the team in year 2.
Yeah.
No question about it. The team looked to him. He was the alpha male. He was the gorilla in the room. And that's a very important distinction, because Mike Pouncey had been the alpha male.
Right.
And Mike Pouncey was just like, yo, take it.
Yeah, right.
It's yours. And this team desperately needs leadership. And people who have those personalities are very important to team, especially when you don't have a strong leadership.
All right, let's move on to the questions here. Steve asks, do you think we'll finally get over 8 wins, and who do you see us going after for linebacker?
No, I don't think they'll finally get over 8 wins. I don't really think there's much linebacker help out there. They'll probably wait until after the waiver, after the first or second round of cuts, just to continue to add bodies. It's over right now for linebackers.
Yeah.
You didn't address it in the draft properly for another year. This is how many years have they not drafted a linebacker? And it is what it is. Kiko Alonso to the rescue.
If he could stay on the field, I guess. Grant, can Vance Joseph coach up Xavier Howard's flaws?
Yeah.
Do we know enough about Vance Joseph at this point, about whether or not he's
coached one of the better secondaries in the NFL for the past 4 years. However, he also inherited one of the better secondaries that was also coached up by Kevin Coyle for the past 4 years. So they are identical resumes, and they just replaced each other.
Right.
And then went back to their old existing jobs. Let's not sit here and pretend like it's going to be, Vance Joseph's the best thing since sliced bread, because I was a huge Kevin Coyle fan, and I still am a Kevin Coyle fan. Let's not think that Vance Joseph is going to come here and walk on water.
Okay, Willie, how big of a question mark is defensive tackle going to be opposite Sue? Is that Jordan? Do they want Jordan Phillips to have that to be the guy there? That's what they want, right?
Yes, and then hopefully Earl Mitchell plays better than he did last year. 22 tackles, 1.8 tackle per game.
That's not good. That's not
very
good.
impressive. Earl Mitchell was not very good last year. Anybody who tells you that he was is a liar. And Jordan Phillips just wasn't better.
Yeah.
It drives me nuts that they didn't address the defensive tackle position, especially in a defensive tackle supposedly deep draft. You need a 300-pound body who can anchor the point against a run, and you chose to ignore it during the draft. Okay, when teams are able to run on you again, don't say I didn't tell you, didn't warn you.
maybe they believe
You can go.
Phillips,
You can go
I
out
guess?
there and you can go get some veterans. There's Randy Starks is out there. Tony McDaniels. I'm just naming guys that Dolphin fans know that are out there. They're there. They could possibly help you. And then there'll be another round of cuts. They signed Chris. They claimed Chris Jones off the waiver wire. He's had a productive NFL career. It'll be interesting to see what he can add. But here's my thing: if the Patriots, say, we got better players on our 90-man roster that we don't want Chris Jones.
Yeah.
Like, something's wrong. We're talking about not talking about a 53-man roster. We're talking about a 90-man roster, training camp roster. Something's wrong. You just don't know what it is.
Lots of people are asking questions about corner. You dropped those 3 names during the show: Leon Hall, Brandon Browner, and
Leon Hall, Brandon Browner, Antonio Cromartie.
Antonio Cromartie. Do you think that they will sign one of those, and who would you prefer?
Eventually, at the end of free agency, right before camp starts, even though he's a pass interference machine, Brandon Browner would be my pick just from this standpoint. He's younger and more durable than Leon Hall and Antonio Cromartie. He has the size that this regime allegedly wants to go to, and he's going to come from Seattle. He's played in the Seattle scheme where, hell, the Dolphins are going off. Dolphins traded for Byron Maxwell using the Seattle film. Well, Brandon Browner's on that same Seattle film, plays in the same scheme. If you want to run that same scheme, why not bring 2 of the 3 cornerbacks that made it work there in Seattle? Just my personal opinion. I know his film is horrible in New Orleans, but let's not pretend like New Orleans' defense isn't horrible.
Albert asked a question about Carew. Do you see him being a Rashard Matthews-like player?
Oh, yeah. That's who I would make the comparison to. He is like Rashard Matthews. That's what made me really fall in love with him in the film study process. Reminds me a lot of Rashard Matthews, Jarvis Landry. Just a tough, physical receiver. Not big, just tough. Like he chews nails.
Choose nails.
Yeah, choose nails.
That's about all the good ones I got.
Would Cromartie make you feel better about the cornerback position? No.
In the undrafted free agent group, people are like the linebacker Burgess out of Louisville.
He's about this big. I think he's a good player. I think Rashawn Scott is a good player as well. There's a Kentucky defensive lineman that's a pretty decent player, but realistically, even though 3 undrafted linebackers made the team last year, it's just a it's okay. They're not banking on undrafted players making this team.
I have a report that yes, Brandon Browner has signed with Seattle. So there goes that.
Today?
Looks like today.
Oh well, there goes that.
There goes that.
Brandon Browner is signed with Seattle. Leon Hall has had a visit with somebody this week, so looks like maybe Antonio Cromartie, who I believe lives here.
He's just hanging out down the road.
Yeah,
kicking up his heels, reading the Sun Sentinel, waiting for someone to give him a call.
I believe he lives in Davie, just like 40% of the NFL.
All right, that's it for us. This was great. I really enjoyed it, and we really enjoyed all your questions. We love doing this for you, so thank you so much for sending us all the great questions, and we'll be back. When are we going to be back?
Boss lady. She don't know. All right. We'll figure out when we're back.
Yeah, maybe the summertime.
Yeah.
Sometime.
OTA, right after OTAs.
All right. Thanks for watching.